Recording in progress.
All right, good evening. I hope we're on our way now. So I received from a number of people submissions of photos, about 320. So we'll get started. And the program looks as follows. I will begin first and will show pictures with very little color, but there is a lot of color coming afterwards. By John McNamara. We'll talk about his trip to Peru. Barry Blust, pictures taken in Pennsylvania and during a road trip to Colorado. Then John, as he does every year, will show pictures taken during many of the field trips of the club. Kathy Hunnicky has pictures from Southeast Arizona and a trip to Brazil. And John Worth is not going to be here, but he also submitted some pictures, and that's pictures taken here in the US and in Panama. So that's the program for tonight, and here we go. Last year, I showed pictures of hummingbirds as a theme. This year, I thought it might be interesting. Owls, or I guess everybody likes owls. They have some kind of a human uh, look to them. And so I'll show a bunch of owl pictures that I've seen throughout the world, and also some other nocturnal birds like nightjars and the like. So, and I put them in actually in order of size. So this is the smallest owl I've ever seen. It's basically the size of a sparrow and elf owl in Arizona during the night. Um, Now we have a bunch of pygmy owls. This is a northern pygmy owl at night and during the day, also seen in Arizona. Costa Rican pygmy owl, it's an endemic. Whenever it says the name of a country in the name you see at the bottom of the screen, means it's obviously an endemic and only can be seen in Costa Rica. 6 inches. We're creeping up a bit. Ferruginous pygmy owl. This was also seen in Costa Rica, and the left is the front, the right is the back. And they, for some reason, seem to show in the back also. It looks like a set of eyes on the back of the head. This is a Cuban pygmy owl. They all look very much alike, but they make some different sounds, and this can only be found in Cuba. Very recently in Colombia, way high up in the mountains in the cloud forest, this is a cloud forest pygmy owl. Now we're going a little bit of a size up, add an inch. African Scops owl. This picture was taken in Kenya. This is becoming 7.6 owl, but still called an owlet, obviously a small bird, a pearl owlet, pearl spotted owlet. Now we're back in the US, and this picture was taken a couple of years ago at Rushton Farms, where they have a program of saw-whet owl banding. And my wife Therese got to release one after it was banded and processed. These owls are about 8 inches from head to tail. This was a picture taken in both of them in Florida of an eastern screech owl. Now we're getting about the size of a catbird. And the owl on the right is an albino of that very same screech owl. This was in a some kind of a rehab center that they had the albino. Another screech owl in Arizona, the western screech owl. And same trip, a whiskered screech owl. In Trinidad and Tobago, we had a pair of tropical screech owls that were just right above us during the day, roosting, but with their eyes wide open. And this is a Pacific screech owl. It's a little bit longer, and also the ears are sticking up like that in Costa Rica. In Cuba, they have what's called a bare-legged owl. Apparently, well, most owls have some feathers on their legs. This one does not at all. Also the size, a little bit bigger than a screech owl by now. Here are, I think, one of the cutest owls that I've ever seen, burrowing owls, both pictures taken in Florida. Now we're up to the size of an American robin. Puerto Rico has also its own endemic owl, Puerto Rican owl, with reddish eyes. Back to Kenya for mid-sized owl, the northern white-faced owl with reddish eyes. This is a modeled owl, picture taken in Panama during the day, but through a lot of twigs and at low in the rainforest. And this Jamaican owl only showed one eye and the beak. Everything else is hidden in the banana leaves, I think. But now we're up to about a little over a foot, 13.5 inches. This picture was taken a couple of months ago here in Pennsylvania. Long-eared owl for a long. It's the first time I saw it, and we've been birding for 6 years, and I always wanted to get one, and finally this happened at 14.5 inches. Black and white owl, they're not uncommon. They have a large the bird on the left. They have a large geographic area where you can find them, Costa Rica and into Ecuador, and quite a large area. The bird on the right looks very, very similar, and it's still not really known the relationship or how different it is. But it's the San Isidro mystery owl in Ecuador, which is in an area where there are no black and white owls. So it's outside of that geography, but it looks pretty much identical. So they're still trying to figure out why right there in San Isidro they have this black and white owl where it doesn't appear anywhere else in that area. You'll see a better picture of a short-eared owl later in the presentation from somebody else. These were taken in Chester County, Brincoed, and in Gloucester County, New Jersey. American barn owl. There now is also the barn owl was recently split. There's also, I believe, an Western barn owl. This was in Cuba. And this was here in Ronks in Lancaster County during a session where the public could attend a banding session of barn owls in a box at a farm. The person who's doing this, he is a person from Pennsylvania Wildlife Commission who's responsible for barn owls in all of Eastern, then, yeah, yes, that's in Denmark, all of Eastern PA. This was in Alaska. We saw this during the day, northern hawk owl, and the owl had just finished his breakfast. You can still see the blood on the nose after eating a vole or something that was recently caught. This owl is now a little bit taller than a blue jay. Back to Costa Rica for a crested owl roosting during the day, and a spectacled owl, which is 19 inches, so it's about the size of a red-tailed hawk. Now back to Kenya, and we're here looking at an owl which is the size of a great horned owl, and it's also that same genus, a grayish eagle owl. These pictures of barred owls I took in Florida, and the one on the right obviously is a very young one, I don't know, a couple weeks old. had fledged the nest and crawling on the branches. Another nice encounter with great horned owls was in Florida. These owls are 22 inches tall, and this was a pair that was trying to dry out after a big rainstorm. This is where the female was nesting. And then a couple of weeks later, I saw the female again and also a young owlet. Getting bigger yet. This was in Honeybrook a couple of years ago. That is snowy owl. I guess quite a few people in the room may have seen that one here in Chester County. That's the heaviest owl in the US. And then we saw a Cape Eagle owl in Kenya. This is now 2 feet tall, similar to the one that escaped the Bronx Zoo a couple of months ago and then found this demise, I guess, somewhere in New York. And the largest owl that I've ever seen, and that's also the largest owl in Africa. I think there are some bigger owls somewhere else, but this is the Verreaux's eagle owl, which is characterized by amongst other things, the pink eyelids. Quite special. So that was it for owls, and a couple more owlish looking or brown, well camouflaged birds. This is a great cotu. Just sits still all day long and hunts during the night. This was in the evening when we found a common cotu sitting on a perch and regularly going off that perch looking for large insects or small rodents. An eastern whippoorwill that somebody pointed out. I passed by it. It was about 5 feet from where I was standing, and I didn't see it. They're so cryptic, but when somebody pointed out, yes, you can find them. Well, I could see it. I never found one. This in Costa Rica, a lesser nightjar, which was in the mangrove forest. And the guide or the driver of the boat knew where this bird was typically roosting. And on our recent trip to Colombia, we found this band-winged nightjar. Again, you could walk by there 5-6 feet, and the bird didn't move. This is a slender-tailed nightjar, and actually there are two in the picture. On the very left, you can see just the head of another one. The guide said, "They're here, you're looking at them." Who's the first one to find them, actually? And we were about 10 yards away. This is a Puerto Rican nightjar during the night, ready to hunt from that perch. And in Texas, we had this common poraki, which apparently always came to the same square foot to roost during the day. So a lot of people get to see it there regularly. The last nocturnal owl, this was in a cave in Trinidad and Tobago. It's an oil bird. And so they sit in a cave during the day and also go out hunting at night. They're completely vegetarian. They eat mostly nuts and fruits. So that's it for me. Now we get a bit more color. So, yeah, if you come sit here, hey, just just put the mouse on the right there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lou. I took a trip to Panama in late December and we were there for a little over 2 weeks. We did Manu National Park, started at Quito. Oh, yeah, Quito. No, that's Ecuador. We started at an elevation of like 10,000, up to 14,000, then up down to 600 feet. So we did a lot of traveling up and down. We didn't really cover that many miles, but we started one of the target birds and we nailed it really well was this Andean cock of the rock. It was quite a nice lek, probably 15 males there. We had one female come in and she and another male took off almost immediately. But I did get this one. To me, it just looks like a Muppet. Uh, Capped heron, we were going down the Madre de Dios River and this riverboat, and the water was cranking along from recent rains, and the boat captain turned around and drove up close to this heron. It kind of tolerated this for a little while, but this capped heron is it's like medium size, about the same size as a little blue, not quite as big as a tricolored. Rufescent tiger heron. This is in an oxbow lake, and we were in a catamaran type riverboat, and just kind of paddled up close to him, and then just kind of like he just kind of watched us as we drifted by. This is a Watson, uh, not a rare species, but a very unusual species, very primitive looking, and the young are so primitive characteristics of having wing claws when they're first born. And if they fall in the water, they clamber back up. These are horned screamers. We saw the horns. We didn't hear the scream. I don't know why, but these things are about turkey size. So these are not small birds. And there was probably half a dozen of them there in this oxbow lake. And so pretty unusual bird. Sand colored nighthawk. We were going towards this oxbow lake early in the morning along the Madre de Dios. We saw a flock of probably 50 of these, and one dark colored one is probably a common nighthawk, but we didn't even notice that until I was looking at my photos later, and it was identifiable to common or Andean, but we saw quite a few of these guys, but only this one perched down close and low. Cinnamon flycatcher, one of the few flycatchers I was able to identify. Band-tailed manakin, little guy who was on where he normally would lek close to that anyways. And it was really, really hard to get him. We were all eaten up, and even our guide, who was kind of acted like he was immune to mosquitoes, he asked for some of the insect repellent. But we did finally get him and finally got some shots. A golden collared honey creeper. I didn't even recognize this as a honey creeper. In fact, I had to go through the book 4 times to find this one. Kind of an unusual looking bird. More ordinary is this purple-throated euphonia. A blue and gray tanager and a buff-throated saltator fighting over a feeding station. And this is a golden tanager. You saw several of these in different spots, but this is the only one I was able to get a good close photo of. And this is a golden naped tanager. He has a golden patch on the back of his head. And I got photos of that, but this one here, I just like this photo. And this is a saffron crowned tanager and a spotted tanager. I'd marked all mine as speckled tanager until I realized this is actually spotted. They don't have speckled there. And I've seen plenty of speckles in Panama, Trinidad, Costa Rica, but spotted is in Peru. Swallow tanager. And I'm not sure what it's eating there. It's either acorns or avocados, but he's really productive. And there's a second one behind him to the right. Very interesting looking bird. Turquoise tanager. Very striking bird. Spectacled redstart. Chestnut breasted coronet hummingbird in the rain. And a buff-tailed sicklebill sticking his tongue out. So his bill isn't quite as long as it appears here, but he was hiding under these banana-type leaves, and he would take off and wouldn't be seen, and he'd come back and perch in the same spot repeatedly. This is at the Cock of the Rock Lodge. And this is a golden-tailed sapphire hummingbird. Gould's jewel friend. Long-tailed silk, one of my favorites. He's got that bluish face, long blue tail. Rufous booted racket tail. On a previous trip, we found Peruvian racket tail, which looks almost the same, except in the Peruvian racket tail, the tail do not cross. But Rufous booted racket tail, the tail, long extended tail feathers do cross. And this is a Rufous crested coquette, very small hummingbird. Sparkling violet ear, fairly common and easily seen, quite aggressive on the feeding stations. Chestnut fronted macaw. This pair had just come out of that nest hole, which had been made by Linny and woodpecker. Blue and yellow macaw. Red-bellied macaw. We saw several hundred coming into a roost one evening, and I shot way too many photos of that. I think it's actually a fruit from a palm tree, but I don't really know that, or some kind of palm tree. Red and green macaws at a clay lick. We made a special trip to a clay lick, and it was really great. There was over 100 of these red and green macaws, several hundred of other parrots and macaws and parrotlets and parakeets. A whole variety was there. This clay lick, they thought it was just for it would neutralize acids from all the fruit they're eating, but it turns out this clay here happens to have a high sodium content, so they're looking for salt. And this is another red and green macaw that flew just really close to us. And these red and green macaws are up in this tree, and I was just amazed at the colors and the way they arrange themselves and their artistic arrangements. Lowland tapir. It was going to a different clay lick near our lodge along the Madre de Dios, and it was coming in at night, so it was South tapir. So they had a blind. You actually had beds in it, so you could like fall asleep. I did. They had to wake me up at like 7 o'clock at night and used a strobe, a flash on it, and so I got them all covered in mud from the clay lick. This is a capybara, the world's largest rodent. Giant otter from the Oxbow Lake. And a black caiman that came quite close, very curious about us. And back on the main river, we had Bolivian spider monkey. Squirrel monkey. Yeah, spider monkeys are much larger. I keep on mixing them up. But this one has a young one and it's feeding on some kind of legume type tree. Bearded emperor tamarin carrying 2 young. And they have paternal care for the young. So this is probably the male here carrying these 2 babies. And there's a bearded emperor tamarin on the right, facing down with a Gouldy monkey and a saddleback tamarin in the background. Blue morpho with his wings open. I mean, get a photo of this was one of my goals. I actually got it. White witch moth, and that was one of our targets to get. This is the world's largest moth. It's quite rare. It's got a 12-inch wingspan. And we found 3 of them. And it was like, everyone was like, just couldn't believe we actually caught that. And apparently there's a guy who's been studying these for 20 years, a guy from the States, and he's never seen one in the wild. And occasionally you find them, but you can't rely on it. But we found 3, so we were very, very stunned that we did that. Rhinoceros beetle, quite a large thing. And turtle on a butterfly. And we were on a quest. This turned into a quest because we were trying to reproduce this photo where one was tapping on the nostrils of the turtle, trying to get salts from the snot. And so I got this shot, and it turned out when I looked at it closely, it's actually licking the eyeball. And I thought that's kind of creepy until I figured, okay, I gotta somewhat salvage this was that may your tears be washed away by butterfly kisses. Anyways,
That's County.
yeah, maybe. White-throated toucan. This was actually one is habituated to people. It was taken as a young one, and he's free flying, and you could easily leave, but he's kind of locked onto people, and just very beautiful bird. Up to get it, we're up really close is nice. Burrowing owl. There's apparently like 20 subspecies of burrowing owl. This is the Peruvian version. Urubamba antpitta. This used to be one of the rufous antpittas, but they split up into, I think, half a dozen species. Great patu. I think they come in color morphs. King vulture. And this is an immature. And another king vulture, an adult in the same spot. And this one has a full crop. We stopped along the main road in Manu, which is quite a narrow little road, but it's black and chestnut eagle. And he sat on the tree to the left there. He finally launched, and I actually caught the launch. I was quite happy with myself for that. And this is a very large eagle. He's just slightly smaller than the harpy eagle. This one here has about 28, 29 inches tall with a 7-foot wingspan. And the harpy eagle is more like 3 feet to 3.5 feet long. And it's got a 7.5-foot wingspan. Okay. And this one here, this is a cerulean capped manakin. And I did get a video of that. And how do I do this?
Let's see, does this work again?
So he was at a lek trying to show off to this green one here. So this is the male in black and blue, and he's showing off to her. Okay. So thank you very much, Luke.
Where did you see the harpy eagle when you were at?
Yeah. We've just been out to the 100 years.
What do I need to?
Just with the mouse, click on this here.
Okay.
And nice. The height. Good.
Okay, so as it says, I have some pictures from Pennsylvania, and some from Jamaica and Greece, just a couple, and then on a road trip just a couple months ago to Colorado that my brother and I did. So to start off with this Carolina wren fledgling, which was in Upland Farm Park on Route 100 near Eagle. Obviously, it was this one and a couple others that had just fledged from a nest in this stone wall that you see behind it. And blue-winged warbler last spring that perched just right with a dark forest background, gave nice contrast. And last June, I was out in Western Pennsylvania for the Pennsylvania Society of Ornithology Festival, and on the way home with Brian Burns, we got word that there were 2 blackneck stilts here in Chester County at the Wilson Road Pond, and we were still about 4 hours away. So we crossed our fingers and said, well, if they're still there when we get there, we'll be really lucky. And sure enough, they were. We got there about 6:15 in the evening. We got to see these birds. and they were gone the next day. So it was just there for that day. Up at the Great Marsh, there was a pair of kestrels that nested last year. And I caught this action where a male brought in a vole or a mouse and was handing it off to the female. Up on Beaver Dam Road, which is an area where the red-headed woodpeckers nest, there was a red-tailed hawk going by at one point, and this red-winged blackbird was not happy about it at all. He was on the hawk's back. At Exton Park, it was osprey a little earlier this year, and he was watching me watch him. And a little water detention pond at a development up in the Glenmore area. I was able to get this nice shot of a police sandpiper. Out at the PSO festival, I found this young cedar waxwing with the bee. And again, up at the Great Marsh, I had a chance to get a nice shot of a swamp sparrow and a rusty blackbird, female rusty blackbird. That's a good place to get them there. Every winter they're up there. And good old Homestead Road had Lapland longspurs, a couple of them this past winter. Here's one of them. And there was a brief report up in the I think it was North Coventry, in a little pond in a development of a sandhill crane. And again, it was there for a few hours and then was gone. And up at the Great Marsh again, this time a tree sparrow. Swamp sparrow in the snow. And then down at Smedley Preserve, that's the new name for an old golf course that is now a park down near, it used to be Loch Iron Golf Course. And it's down near Kennett Square area. It's a good place to get red-breasted nuthatch. This is not a great picture, but I was watching this snipe at the very northern end of Marsh Creek, and it left the mud and started walking across the ice, just out in the open, totally atypical of a snipe. I just had to get a picture of it. A very, very blue bluebird. And this is at the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant. Horned grebe at Marsh Creek. Up at Crow's Nest Preserve, there's some red-headed woodpeckers that nest up there. And now we move out of Pennsylvania to Greece. Just a couple of pictures here. This is a European robin that was very cooperative for me in Corfu. This was not a birding trip, but for me, every trip is a birding trip. So, and in Jamaica, this was a birding trip, and this was I caught the right angle on this red-billed streamer tail. And there's several different kinds of toadies down in the Caribbean. This is the Jamaican toady. Then this past April, my brother and I finally got to go on a Colorado grouse tour with Birding Eco Tours. We were supposed to do this a couple of years ago, and the trip didn't go because there weren't enough people. And then last year we had a conflict and we couldn't go. So it finally came together this year. And my brother and I decided that we were going to drive out and do some birding on the way out and then birding on the way back. One of the things we were trying to do was trying to see if we could reach 50 species in every state that we went through. And for the most part, we did that. But this shows these pins are all of the eBird checklists that we submitted as we went through our route. We went down the southern route. This was being early April. We figured we had a better chance of getting birds on the southern route. Did all our tour with the Birding Eco Tours, and then went back the northern route. One of the things that happened with the southern route is as we got into western Tennessee, we were coming right up against a major front coming through, and there was all sorts of tornado warnings and everything. So instead of heading west directly, we went down into Alabama and Mississippi and around. We didn't see any tornadoes, but apparently one did come within about 20 miles of where we were. We did some birding in Green Bottom Wildlife Management Area in West Virginia, and had a western cattle egret, and came up rare in eBird. We thought, okay, well, it's probably rare for the season or something. I got in touch with the West Virginia eBird, the Discord server, and it turns out no, it's very rare all the time. So we were lucky that we got some good pictures, and other people went out to see it later that day and it was not there. So we were very lucky to see this bird. Horned grebe with a fish in Tennessee. Yellow-throated warbler in Missouri. Scissor-tailed flycatcher on a barbed wire fence. I believe I took this picture right from the car window. And at a water treatment plant down in Kansas, we had the Swainson's hawk being harassed by a northern harrier. We then joined up with the formal tour, and that afternoon we went out to let me find the name of it here. Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge. And there was a lake there, and right at the building next to the lake, we had a yellow-headed blackbird. Later in the trip, we had this Lewis's woodpecker. What's interesting about the Lewis's woodpecker is apparently they tend to be somewhat social. And in this one area where we saw this bird, we were on a dirt road, and we saw another one go over, and then another one. We ended up counting 18 of these woodpeckers as they went by. It was pretty cool. This is in Gunnison State National Park. Fox sparrow. Fox sparrows out west don't look anything like the ones here, not nearly as rusty. And scaled quail, it was on a wall in somebody's front yard. Western meadowlark. I was a little surprised at how sharp this came out, considering it was taken through a van window. And one of the main reasons we went on this trip was to see the prairie chickens on their lek. And here's the lesser prairie chickens displaying. They put up some feathers in the back of their neck. They raise their eyebrows. They inflate sacs on their side of their necks, prop up their tail, and they stomp their feet, and they're constantly clucking and making other noises. It's quite a show. And then we just got lucky along the road at one point. There was a barn owl sitting on the fence post, middle of the day. We also went to a greater prairie chicken lek. Here you can see the neck sack is a yellow instead of the orange color that it was on the lesser. These birds are a little bigger than the lesser, and they have a whole different sound. And they definitely have conflicts with each other. We managed to catch a couple of shots. We went to the Pawnee grasslands, and one of the things we were looking for was long spurs. We found the thick-billed long spur. We were looking for the chestnut-colored long spur and did not find it. Another bird that we went after was sharp-tailed grouse. And our leader said, if we're lucky, we might see a dusky grouse go off the road as we're driving along. Well, not only did we see a dusky grouse, we saw several along the road, and a couple of them, like this one, were displaying. The picture's not great, but consider it was taken in the headlights of the van in the dark. So you can see the reddish neck sack inflated and the eyebrow there. We were very lucky to get a display like this. White pelican. We saw pronghorns in many places. And another of the chicken birds, as our guide said, was the greater sage grouse that we went to see. And again, they were doing a display, and here two of the males were having a dispute among themselves. And there's what they look like when they're doing the display. So a sage thrasher, and we saw them in several places. This one posed nicely. This was after the formal tour had ended, and my brother and I went back on our way, and we went back through this Pawnee grasslands. We went looking for the chestnut-colored long spur ourselves, and we managed to find it. Found a couple of them. Maybe one reason we didn't get it on the tour was because there was high winds that day. It was much less windy on this day. We found a marbled godwit in a little field puddle in Nebraska. And in Illinois, we had the Eurasian tree sparrows, which was something that I wanted to get for my US list. I've already had them over in Europe, but there's in Illinois and Missouri, in that area, they're spreading around. So that's where you go to get them here in the US. And that's it. Yeah. Oh, it was 3.5 weeks. I mean, the tour was 10 days, but we actually still.
Okay, as I usually do, I will go through the field trips we had and some of the birds you missed on the field trips if you didn't come on them. Hopefully sell our field trips to you. On May 4th, 2024, we did White Clay Creek where we had Baltimore Oriole, red-winged blackbird female carrying nesting material, eastern towhee male. And then on the 7th, Stroud Preserve, northern rough-winged swallow over the creek. And the Orchard Oriole, this is a first-year male with a yellow body and a dark chin. Bobolinks. Stroud's a good place around here to get bobolinks, although better places right next door. Then Cheslin Preserve was on the 11th, May 11th, Acadian flycatcher. Then we went up to Sullivan County. Sullivan County, we did that May 18th through 20th, 2024. we were very lucky on the first day. We found our sandhill cranes with the babies and were able to put them on the breeding bird atlas. Also in Sutherland County, we had chestnut-sided warbler, tree swallow, he's puffing up his neck. In Nottingham Park on this 26th of May, we had a Mississippi kite fly over. That was kind of neat. As the last minute, we were just doing the list, and there's a Mississippi kite. Hibernia Park on the 2nd of June, which would be 1 year ago from today. Eastern towhee, a male singing. An osprey flying by. And the Willis Brook Preserve on the 8th of June. Eastern wood pewee taking a look over his shoulder at me. Red belly male woodpecker. In Springton Manor on the 15th of June, we found this blue-gray gnatcatcher with its nest. It was a real nuisance finding this bird. We knew the nest was there. It kept flying in and out. Finally, we spotted the nest. They make him out of lichen. Is very well camouflaged up there. Also, Springton Manor, a northern mockingbird with some food in its mouth. Well, no, nesting material. And Black Rock Preserve on the July 14th. A nice male scarlet tanager out in the open, where normally they're hiding in the trees and you can't find them. Of course, then we've Bombay Hook. Did that on the 8th of August. Hiding in the reeds was a marsh wren. Forster's tern flying by, already in the winter plumage. A couple of sandhill cranes found there also. Short-billed dowitcher and some semi-palmated sandpipers. Well, from this is the Bombay Hook going south. So we went down to Port Mahon to get the royal terns. Royal terns specialize in salt waters, whereas the Caspian tern can be found in fresh water. Yeah, down there also along the Port Mahon is a spotted sandpiper. Again, in September on the 24th, we did a trip to Shaw's Bridge where we had a black pole warbler in its winter plumage. Common yellowthroat male. Magnolia warbler. It was a really nice trip from warblers that day. That's a very nice park for such a little park and very close by. Ospreys in the tree there. A couple of red-shouldered hawks. I was able to get a picture of one of them. Red shoulder, I have a red tail to go with it. This is at Hibernia Park. This is the second trip to Hibernia now. This is in October 12th. And Crow's Nest Preserve, that was October 18th. And we had a hermit thrush, early hermit thrush in October. Forsyth, trip to Forsyth, that would be the 26th of October. A northern harrier coursing over the reeds. Some crater yellow legs. Great blue heron. And black crowned night heron. Unfortunately, this guy seemed to be one-legged. He was hopping around on one leg. Great egret. And a snow egret hopping out of the water. Pauling's Farm on the 18th of, no, I'm sorry, the 9th of November. Nice hairy woodpecker female. A white-throat sparrow. Winter birds are here. Then Dorothy's, one of her ducks of Chester County trips. This is the one in the 23rd of November. And we had a white crowned sparrow at Struble Lake, where we usually find them. Gold crowned kinglet. Eastern bluebird female. And Golden Park's gull. Not one we expected to find. French Creek. There was a couple bald eagles in the trees there. And brown creeper. We had like 3 brown creepers that day. It was a very interesting day. You usually don't get a lot of brown creepers, but we did. And that was on the 4th of January. And then trips to Barnegat and Forsyth, Dorothy led. That was on the 23rd. I'm sorry, 26th. Excuse me. 5th of January, I'm sorry. And we had the harlequin ducks. They're such beautiful birds. Hard not to take a million pictures of those guys. Common eider flying by. Oodles of brants. You usually get about 300 or 400 brants there. And when we got to Forsyth, the American bittern was by the side of the road. And the juvenile black-crowned night heron was very close to the American bittern. American black duck. Merlin sitting in the reeds there. Snow geese. Now, Shark River trip. That's the 11th of January. Great blackback gull. Bunch of American widgeons. Hooded merganser with his hood up. Another beautiful bird. Black scoter flying by. Lucky to get that picture. And not a great picture, but you missed it if you weren't on the trip. We did get a razorbill way out there. Bombay hook, 22nd of February. A juvenile bald eagle. This is probably a 2nd-year bird or going into a 2nd year. You can see some of the feathers are long and some are short. That's how you can tell a 2nd-year eagle from a 1st-year eagle. You see the ragged trailing edge of the wing. Northern harrier male. You don't see many male harriers. I'm told that it's about 10-to-1 males to females. Again, there were 5 sandhill cranes there. We got there, watched them, they flew off, and nobody else got to see them. On the way back, we stopped at Augustine, and I talked to a guy while we were using the bathroom there. And he told us about a new place up near Port Penn. And we went to this place, and in there was a black swan. And this place was, that day was, Bombay Hook was very cold and icy, and it was not a very good day. This was the only place that had really open water and had lots and lots of birds in it. So that's going to be a new stop from now on. And John Hines on the 1st of March. Bald eagle flying by. They nested there. This one was flying back to the nest. A brown creeper. I always loved brown creepers. So hard to get good pictures of them because they look out of focus all the time. So I've thrown a lot of pictures away thinking the bird was out of focus till I realized the bird just looks out of focus. Then we did a trip on the 8th of March up to Walnut Lane and then walked across the mill at Anselma. And here again, we had another male northern harrier. In Anselma, we had a whole bunch of rusty blackbirds. Another Chester County trips from Dorothy on the 15th of March. And there was a report of a tundra swan in an apartment complex. Yeah, trumpeter swan, excuse me. In a apartment complex. Sure enough, there it was, just sitting there. And one of my favorites. I know I'm odd. I love turkey vultures. But they're so interesting, the colors. You think they're plain birds, but when you really look at them, they've really got a lot of different browns in them. Up at the quarry, which was our last stop, we did find the redneck grebe off in the distance. Uh, Jim Russell leads a tax day trip on 15th of April every year. We did find a group of American pipits flying across Homestead Road for us. And Broadwing Hawk, first of the year showing up. This is an adult. And then Raps Dam trip was on the 19th of April. Nice female common merganser. Cheslin on the 22nd. Blue-gray gnatcatcher. Yellow warbler, they're starting to come in. It's April, the end of April. And that's it for me.
And now it's really dark and I can't see my notes.
So if you just with the mouse click here, that's the next picture coming up, I guess.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I hope you all can hear me. I went to Southeast Arizona with my husband for a couple of weeks, and we drove around there, and which was great. Never thought he'd really want to go birding, but we did. That's what we mainly did, was bird watching. Okay, let me see. Mance. Here's this is a vermilion flycatcher, male, and this is the female vermilion flycatcher. We had started off at Ramsey Canyon. There's a nice little bed and breakfast there. This is Say's Phoebe, the Black Phoebe. This was a drive away where we actually saw a bunch of sandhill cranes. Usually there are thousands, but by that time of year, we actually were there. It was towards the end of March that we were there. That there were only about a couple hundred sandhill cranes left. They were pretty cool to see. But this Black Phoebe kept following us along. Oops, sorry. Trigger finger. Okay. It's a violet-crowned hummingbird that was hanging around at the bed and breakfast. Acorn woodpeckers were all over the place, but trying to get a nice picture of them. They were always ducking their head right at the last second. Here's the painted redstart. And this is one I think is one of the coolest birds. You know, they look sort of like a mixture between a cardinal and a parrot. It's Pyroloxia. It's male. And this one was funny because actually it doesn't show up as the way the lighting was in the evening. They're much more black looking. But just the evening light seemed to really lighten them up a bit. Maybe it was a female. I'm not certain if there's much of a color difference with them. But we were looking all over for this bird. We would only see it as we're driving 55 miles an hour down a road, and it would be up on a telephone pole. Yeah. But we finally caught one in our neighborhood. This Mexican jay, an immature one. You can tell the difference between the mature and the immature by the pink in the bill. This is a male rufous hummingbird. I was always trying to catch the hummingbirds when they were perched instead of being at the feeders. So trying to track them where they were going. And we took a hike up, I think it was called Montezuma's Mountain or something like that. But way up on the top, and you can see that's the wall. Down there with a line across the picture, and there is a common raven. So he was yelling his head off. This picture, I know it's photography wise, it's not so great. It's all out of focus. But the thing I loved about it is that it just shows really hummingbirds can be so territorial and just a whirl of energy, but they can keep their head still. And this one, Anna's hummingbird's head is perfectly still, and the rest of his body is total vibration. And the rufous hummingbird, which I was trying to get a perfect picture of, but then when it saw the Annas, it went into vibration mode also. So Anna's hummingbird with the light actually catching it when it's perched. This is a yellow-eyed junco. There were a number of different varieties of juncos we saw. Um, this is a Gambel's quail, male. And here's a female of the Gambel's quail. This was at, I think it was Batista's garden, I think was the name of the place. It was great. There were a number of places you could go to where different organizations had lots of feeders out and water sources, and the birds were just attracted to it. So you didn't have to work so hard. They all just came in. It's a northern flicker, the red shafted. You can sort of see, if this points. There's no, it doesn't point, but on its wing and underneath the tail, the outer tail feather is more orangey. A bridal titmouse. And here's a cactus wren that's actually on a cactus. Abbott's towhee. And a lazuli bunting. I had another picture of it. I was just getting focused. It was going to be a perfect picture. And then a goldfinch just flew right in the way. Here's a Costas hummingbird. We were at the Sonora Desert. There's black-throated sparrow. Hutton's vireo. We could hear this bird, but it took the longest time to find it. The hepatic tanager, a female. And a broad-billed hummingbird. And this shot, you can actually see how broad the bill is. So, proper name for it. This Rivoli's hummingbird, not in direct light. Let's see, I have a picture of one much more brilliant, I think. Rufous-winged sparrow. It just has that little bit of rufous color on its one feather on the edge of its upper, what do they call it, coverts or whatever, where it just has a little bit of rufous. And that's how you can tell what it is compared to so many of the other sparrows there. Here's a Lincoln sparrow. And sunset with the mountains and the desert, the cactus. Here's a black neck. We're in Brazil. We went to Brazil to visit some friends of ours and to actually go to Iguaçu Falls. But my son and I, we had to stay in São Paulo for a few days while my husband was actually at a conference. So I hired a guide to take us to the Atlantic forest. So he actually came and picked us up and then took us to the Atlantic forest. There was property that he had arrangements that he actually has like a little house there that he's able to stay in and write his papers and stuff. He is an ornithologist. And actually he was a very interesting guy, Marco. He started into birds because he had a degree in biology and he was studying howler monkeys. And he had to sit out in the woods and he said, howler monkeys sleep a lot. So he had nothing to do while these monkeys are sleeping. He's supposed to be documenting them. He said they were so boring. So he started watching the birds. And then he was talking to some friends and they said, oh, you can make money studying birds and giving bird tours. So he started doing that and he said he really enjoys it. So he knew the Portuguese names, the English names, and the Latin names for all the birds. So I took my son and I up to this property and he had feeders out there. And this is an immature black neck Jacobin. Much prettier actually than the mature one. There's red-necked tanager. Star-throated antwren. This little devil was hard to actually get a picture of because it's the size of, regular wren, our house wrens. And it was flitting in it was heavily forested area, of course, the Atlantic forest. But finally got a look at him. Burnished buff tanager, which I thought very appropriate name for it. And here's violet-capped wood nymph. And here's the adult black Jacobin. Actually, that other one I think is misnamed. It said black neck Jacobin. It's just black Jacobin. This is the adult one. Here's a chestnut crowned Picard. And this was a very curious bird, as you can see. He seemed to be wondering what we were doing. And here's a scale-throated hermit with a sapphire spangled emerald. The sapphire spangled emerald is the one, the upper one. And unfortunately, it's not the greatest picture of it, but it was the only picture I could get of it. While we were there, the weather wasn't very good. We had a number of rainstorms that came through. So trying to get the hummingbirds in any light that brought out their color was pretty difficult, but I thought this light was pretty good. Here's a black goggled tanager. The green-headed tanager. Riverbank warbler. We went back, got together with my husband and our friends, and part of the idea of the trip was to go to Iguazu Falls, that borders Argentina. So part of the time we were on the Brazilian side, and the part of the time we went over to Argentina, which actually we didn't even think about what we would do, but it's so easy to do it, we just did it. But this is one of the pictures of Iguazu Falls. There were a lot of plush crested jays there that were like jays all over the place that are very curious and would come and wonder what you're doing and try to get tourists to give them food, which I was pleased that there were rangers around that yelled at people not to feed the jays. And this is a crested caracara, an immature one. I think this is back after we left Iguazu Falls. We went back to our friends' moms, and his extended family lives in the city of Curitiba. So we actually went and stayed in Curitiba for about a week. And this is the friends, all their family finally has realized that I don't want to go shopping. I don't care to go to malls. That the best thing to do if they want to entertain me is to take me to a park. So they actually all now own sneakers, and actually they seem to enjoy going to parks. So I think I've done a good, yes, change these cities people. But so this was a crested caracara, an immature one, and there were bare-faced ibis. Thing looks like something like an outer space creature, these eyes. Cool. This was a masked water tyrant. And the good old capybaras. And this one has a cattle tyrant on it. The capybaras in this park are so tame that you actually can go up and pet them. Yeah, that's how tame they are. In fact, a few years ago, they had an issue because somehow it was determined that they actually can carry the plague. So they got kind of freaked out about it. I guess there had been one that was sick, but I think it was just a one-time issue. They didn't have any warning signs up about it. And this is a southern lapwing, and I love this picture because it really does show the spurs that are sticking out. And the Portuguese name is Caracara, which is why. I think it's why what. Anyway, we always had the problem when we first went to Brazil when I wanted to see a caracara, and they kept thinking this bird because the names, their pronunciation of it is very similar. So that they were like, no, that's not it. Here, this is it. I'm like, no, that isn't it. I want to see it. So sometimes the English and Portuguese, I either know the Portuguese name or I know the English name.
So John could not be here himself, but he submitted some pictures. So let's go through these as well. First in the US, American kestrel with some prey, looks like. Yeah, bringing it in. Nice picture of an American oyster catcher, ready to dig into the oyster there. And Hinge managed to spear something. And a barred owl just looking with one eye out of the nest. Okay, whether we sit or we fly, when we have to do what we have to do, we go ahead, right? Brand, a brown pelican, probably in Florida. It's a great contrast. People always ask, could this be a cackling? It's smaller. But if you have to ask, is it a cackling, then it usually isn't, because they're really tiny cackling geese. Here you see very well the difference. Nice picture of a cedar waxwing. Looks about equal size. Nice female common yellowthroat. Oops, my internet's. You don't see that. Dark-eyed junco. Great look at an eastern wood pewee. With yellowish under parts. Great blue heron. Got a nice meal. A whole collection of greater yellow legs. Nicely reflected in the water. American herring gull. Also show what it just had in the stomach, I guess. Northern Hasron. Just fledged. Still see very much the gape. Eastern. Seen a lot of gray ghosts tonight. Another good picture of a northern harrier. Osprey just dove in and trying to get up back. Hopefully he's got something. At sunset, an osprey in the sky. A non-breeding palm warbler. Probably taken in Florida. John and Patty go there regularly. Philadelphia warblers. Don't come across too many of those. That's nice. And a red knot, full breeding plumage. Rainbow darting flight. Close up. Ross's goose. Most all the Canada geese. It's also substantially smaller. Probably taken at the same place where I took my short-tailed owl, but much better in focus, better lighting. At Brincoed. Snow bunting in the winter, non-breeding. Male surf scoter in flight. And two male tree swallows, not happy with each other. Gorgeous wood duck at eye level. It's nice. Yellow warbler in the spring. I think now we're in Panama with the blue-chested hummingbird and a clay-colored thrush. Actually, the national bird, I believe, of Costa Rica. Costa Rica. Okay, neighbors. Crane hawk. And a great cowed wood rail. great curacao, the female. I find the female a bit more attractive than the male with a big yellow bulbous waddle on the nose. Nice picture of a king vulture. And roadside hogs, one of the more common hogs in the neotropics. Very, very colorful ruby topaz hummingbird. Beautifully lit, right in flight. Smooth-billed Ani in the evening light. And that's it. Thanks for that.